Issue 60. After Tails and Sonic complain about it being too hot, and Tails confuses me by saying for some reason that weather like this won't last, Sonic sees an entire mountain of a raging inferno, proving that Tails is wrong by saying that. Tails then shows his intelligence by saying that a fire like that would set the whole forest on fire. That's a good point. I mean, why didn't the fire just burn the whole forest down? I guess it wasn't touching it. And then Tails says, just like Sonic had, that maybe their eyes are playing tricks on them. Why would they be, though? But Sonic then points out that the mere existence of all that heat is proof that they aren't hallucinating, making Tails look like an idiot for not realizing it. Just now, he starts being affected by convection. When he was right next to lava during a fight with Knuckles in the Sonic and Knuckles special and was fine. Sonic then lampshades Village actually being so close to that giant bonfire. He's right. They're no smarter than people who choose to live near active volcanoes. Really, there should be laws against having villages near places that dangerous. A villager apologized that she can't give them some water because the village water supply is low and closely rationed, which disappoints Sonic since he's almost dehydrated. Why didn't they take some water with them on their adventure? Tails started out the adventure on a biplane, so why aren't they using that and storing water bottles in it? Especially since they use the biplane in the next issue, so it's not like it's broken. The villager says that Mount Stormtop, that's kind of a weird name since it's about storms, but it's burning. Well, I guess it wasn't always on fire, so it's probably named after it being so high that it looks like it's on the top of storm clouds. But still, that's a pretty ironic name for a burning mountain. The villager says that Mount Stormtop has burned continuously for over 100 days and states the obvious that people need water to live. The grandfather of the woman then says that the villagers like him are too stubborn to leave the place they've lived all their lives. Then we get some intriguing explanations into what caused the fire, rather than it just being there. It was caused by the curse of the Iron King, as the village refused to abide the tyrant's dictatorship. And as payback, his wife, the sorcerer's Iron Queen, set the mountain on fire and kept it blazing non-stop. Okay, so why didn't the Iron King and Queen take down Eggman a long time ago? Why didn't they take over the Acorn Kingdom? You think the Iron Queen with her magical powers would be more than capable of stopping a tyrant who tries to turn a subject into robots? So just like Mammoth Mogul, these villains create a plot hole by having always been on Mobius at the same time that Eggman was running around. I love the concept, but still. It would have worked better if they were from another dimension and always stayed there. Sonic is told that the only thing that can put out the fire is the enchanted fan of Fen, but the Iron King keeps it locked away in his arsenal instead of destroying it like would be smart. The Iron Queen is able to see Sonic and Tails coming through a crystal ball, acting just like Eggman's plot convenience monitors, and this time it makes more sense because she keeps this with her all the time, rather than expecting me to believe she happened to be there to see the camera footage at exactly the right time. For some reason, the Iron Queen is idealistic enough to just assume Sonic and Tails want to help her even after the Iron King tells her otherwise. And her being idealistic makes no sense considering her tragic backstory, which I already know about from later issues. The Iron Queen is a human, by the way, although they try to have you believe she's a badger. But her marriage with a bull, despite being a human, is explained later on to be a purely platonic one for political alliance purposes, so it's fine. Then Tails tells Sonic that it's not humidity they're suffering from, which would require moist air, but simply heat. And Sonic calls him out on being a nitpicker, which I like. It feels like they know that he's a genius now, even though they don't. Sonic's just taking a break while some storm clouds show up, and the two of them avoid some lightning and start running away from a brainwashed Monkey Khan. I like how Sonic immediately noticed that his eyes were looking weird and he must have been brainwashed, rather than just assuming he went back to being evil for no reason. The Iron Queen then comes in, saying that Monkey Khan's rage and fury, those words mean the same thing, is what makes him so easily manipulated by her magic, as well as undefeatable. This shows consistency with how Ixis was able to more easily control King Acorn when he got angry, so it's consistent rules for magic. Fortunately, Tails gets a moment in the sun, being useful by knocking away the witch's staff, which brings Khan back to normal. And the Iron Queen somehow doesn't notice Tails and thinks only Sonic is responsible, as she leaves with Sonic calling her Toots. What came out of the staff were rings, which were used to amplify her staff's power. Even Khan is reluctant to take on the Iron Queen, despite normally liking the challenge, and since she effortlessly brainwashed him, this makes sense. What also makes sense is how she was able to brainwash Khan, but not Sonic and Tails. Khan is a cyborg, and they're not. This is explained more in depth later in the comic, and good thing too, because that fills up a major plot hole right here. For some reason though, Khan decides to tag along to the Iron Fortress anyways, despite saying he's cautious about it, even though there's no reason she couldn't have a spare staff to brainwash him again. The three of them walk into the castle, with some of them worrying if it's a trap because they're allowed to enter so easily, and Sonic oddly dismissing the idea like an idiot. And Khan says that in a castle this size, searching for the hidden fan would take hours. But considering how much the comic early on took care to emphasize how Sonic can do pretty much everything super fast, including doing the chores in just seconds, why isn't Sonic just running through the whole castle in a second the minute he entered it to do all the searching really quickly? Tails and Khan will still have each other for the 1 second he'll be gone, so no reason to worry about leaving him behind and putting him in danger. Instead, the story is one of the ones to almost forget about Sonic's super speed. Like the time I wondered why he didn't pick all those berries in like an instant. Then the Iron King shows up out of nowhere, so I guess Sonic was right to not leave him behind for a second, but it'd still just be a few seconds. And Sonic tells Tails to leave to get the fan, despite the protests at leaving him behind. He's pretty loyal, I like that. He also finds the fan ridiculously quickly when you think that it would be hidden better. Though I guess they didn't see the point of trying too hard because every intruder would get killed by the Iron King himself anyways. The fan blows the Iron King into a wall, like a way cooler version of that Gus jar from Skyward Sword. And then Khan remarks that he already heard legends about how awesome the fan was. Maybe he spent a lot of time in Mobius, China and learned about it in the passing. The Iron Queen shows up again, complaining that she's proud of the fire and doesn't want her own creation to be doused away. I'm really glad she got a proper Furian excuse for sociopathy later on, or I'd be calling her out on how inexplicably insanely evil she is and calling her badly written. Although, I guess she is badly written for the moment. Sonic then uses the fan, which blows out the fire instead of spreading it like the wind actually does with fire in the real world. I mean, it's not like you're blowing out a candle. And the Iron King didn't die of hypothermia, so it's not like its wind is super cold to the point of forcing down the temperature of the fire with magic. But I guess a magical fire extinguisher would have looked too mundane. Then the Iron Queen just leaves, vowing revenge, without ever engaging them in a fight. So she looked completely ineffective and unthreatening and embarrassed herself by insisting on showing up, but she couldn't actually do anything against them. The villagers all rejoice, and Khan is then told about an ancient prophecy foretelling the ascension of a great monkey king. Gee, I wonder who that is. I'm shocked that this is the first time Khan is learning about this. You mean to tell me he learned about the legend of the fan being awesome before people mentioning the legend involving himself just by looking at him? And it ends with Sonic actually lampshading the fact that even though he did all the work, it was Khan who got his own prophecy. The backup story, which I had to go on my way to find, has the king coming to have a talk with Sally. He says, ever since I ordered the dismantling of the Robians, you've been questioning my judgment. Gee, I wonder why. Him saying that at first made me worried that he had changed his mind and was going to dismantle them, because he's talking as if she has no reason to not trust them for that. Well, at least he does admit here in the same panel that he wasn't himself when he made that order, and has now allowed Robians their own space and not whole. Wait, the Robian colony was built off screen? That's underwhelming. Why haven't we seen that? He says that he actually understands Sally's attitude more than she'd think, and leads her into a place that she's never been in the castle before, despite living there all her life, without using keys to unlock the door to it first. So I have to wonder why she didn't discover the secret passageway sooner. The king says it's time for her commemoration, and explains to her about the source of all, which we already know about. The process usually begins with the 10th commemoration. This completely contradicts every generation, as I'm pretty sure 10 commemorations don't happen every generation. I mean, it's a commemoration. It sounds pretty important. So that was confusing. What's also confusing is Sally saying, I wasn't able to. I didn't know. I really wish she had been allowed to finish those sentences. The king is letting Sally decide whether she wants to become the ruler of the realm. Really? That's nice of an absolute monarch to let his only remaining heir to do. Certainly an interesting difference from the real world. He says that the price to be paid is being joined with the source of all. How is that a price to be paid? What's the problem? He then says that Sally will be the first female acorn to undergo the rite. Really, in all those years. Well, their brother is separated from them, and this is more modern times where sexism is not really a problem like before. Sally says that she's ready, but looks sympathetic and relatable as her expression makes it obvious that she's not ready, and is in fact worried and under a lot of pressure. The king says not so fast, and that in her case they'd have to start thinking about the future and a suitable king to sit at her side. Then the king has a major dick move where he screams at Sally that Sonc is out of the question as potential king. Not because he thinks that he's irresponsible, which he could have said, but because he's sticking to some dumb arbitrary tradition that the monarch doesn't get to choose a mate despite being a monarch, the source of all does. So the source of all is sentient and intelligent enough to be a fixer-upper of couples now, being the one that chose Sally's parents in an arranged marriage. They were engaged at 11? Granted they were married at 18, but still! 11-year-olds with fiancés. Did this happen in the Middle Ages? Also, it says commemoration there, so it seems that when he said 10th commemoration, he meant 10th year of life. Just say year then. Do they have commemorations every year? That seems weird. When it's revealed that the source of all chose Antoine as her husband, she naturally gets furious, and I'm in full support of her as she stands up to her father for it. When it comes to official duties, I've always deferred to you. But when it involves who I'm going to marry, that decision will be my choice alone. I love that. It's such a shame that her father responds in such a heartless way, saying that he'll have no choice but to strip her of her title and duties, even though she has every right to them. And he doesn't have no choice because he's the one making the choice. Like father, like daughter. Then the king, still looking completely unsympathetic, but at least finally a believable character because he's showing a mistake and stuff, thinks to himself that he'll give Sally time to reconsider, and that if Sally decides not to go along, he'll need to know if his other option is still available, whatever that other option is when Elias isn't around, otherwise he'd just be talking to him. Seriously though, Antoine? You'd think the source of all would know better. You'd think it would have been omniscient enough as a magical source of all life to realize that Antoine belongs with Bunny and is happy with her. And yet neither it nor the king give a shit. There's a possible explanation for the king so blindly sticking to dumb, worthless traditions like this, as after suffering its own silence for so long, he's so happy to be home that he clings to anything associated with home and with his good memories of the past, which included embracing conservative traditions. But he's clearly not thinking straight here, valuing traditions more than his own daughter. The first story, by Frank Strom, was surprisingly really good after the last issue, introducing a lot of interesting concepts that I like, including the Iron King and Queen, the magical fan of Fen, and Khan having an important status as the Monkey King. The story also aged pretty well, as the later issues in the comic explained that the Iron King actually has an actual backstory, as well as clearly defined powers that explain her not brainwashing Sonic and Tails. So there goes those plot holes. There is still the big question of why the hell someone as powerful as the Iron Queen didn't take down Eggman as a threat to her kingdom, though. And why she can't just destroy the village outright, before and after the fire. I still think it's weird how the fans somehow extinguish the fire instead of spreading it. It's not a fire extinguisher. It's not creating fire extinguisher stuff everywhere. That is one magic fan. And the next story, by Ken Penders, is about the king choosing blindly to adhere to tradition over consideration for his own daughter. Which makes sense if you think about it, but it's still a major dick move on his part. Just not to the point of an out-of-character moment, considering the Zone of Silence thing. It's really weird that the source of all was so brain-dead stupid that it chose the wrong suitor for Sally, when you'd expect it to be omniscient with all of its magical power. The conflict feels very arbitrary and coming out of nowhere. It would have made more sense if it was just the king personally wanting her to marry Antoine himself because he likes Antoine, rather than doing it because of an unspeaking pool of golden liquid telling him to. And Sally doesn't even mention Bunny dating Antoine. In fact, we haven't even seen the happy couple kiss since issue 50. And that's pretty disappointing. I was looking forward to them being a happy couple together.